Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all on this beautiful day. Aren't we blessed? I tell you what, I never appreciated having 70-degree temperatures like I have the last day or so. Being able to garden and stuff and be outside more. I'd love to be out in the garden. And wow, when it's 95, that kind of takes the wind out of your sails. Thanks for choosing to be here with us this morning. We're grateful to see you. This is kind of an auspicious day. It's Happy Father's Day today, right? It is Happy Juneteenth and Happy Summer Solstice, which is in 2 days. Tuesday is the summer solstice. So this feels like an auspicious day to come together and to affirm some good things for ourselves and our planet. So you, I see all regular folks here, no newcomers today. You all know there are masks and so on available. Make yourself at home comfortable. Take advantage of that if you like. And we are grateful to all of you tuning in online. Thank you for your support. I always like to mention a couple of announcements. Shirley Williams is going to be guest speaking next Sunday. Her topic is Faith After Doubt, which sounds very intriguing. And a very talented local singer-songwriter, Chad Warren, is going to be providing the service music next week. We haven't seen either one of them for a while. That should be a treat. And I'm mentioning to people longer range planning in terms of summer plans. Our summer concert is scheduled for July 30. And a lot of our local talent is going to be, our favorite Unity musicians are going to be performing on the back deck as usual, weather permitting, 6 o'clock on Saturday, July 30th. So please put that on your calendar. We are grateful to have Louise and Jack with us this morning. Let's thank them for being here today. Thank you. Jack just had some cataract surgery, I think, so he's protecting those orbs. Very important. All right. Well, as always, we begin with prayer. We begin to think about what we are lifting up in consciousness, what we are holding the high watch for ourselves, for our loved ones, for living beings everywhere. And as we begin to get into that prayerful consciousness, Louise will sing us into that space with Surely the Presence.
Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
Let's close our eyes and allow ourselves to become even more centered and still and ever more aware of that presence of God that abides in us, that is with us always, that is with every living being across the globe. Not one of us separate, disconnected from that deep source, the source of all our good. We remember that highest of all truths in these quiet moments of prayer and what that means for all of us, this flow of renewing life in us, this guiding wisdom that we can draw from, this steadying peace within us, regardless of circumstances, challenges we might face. This great power within us, available to us all in all times, in all situations. We are recipients of that power. We are open channels for it to flow through. And we invite God to guide us to show us the path of life before us, moment by moment, day by day. How grateful we are to know this high truth for living beings across the planet. Not one of us is separate from Source. We are all deeply connected in this God-infused universe, and following that guidance and direction from within, moving always toward healing, toward peace, toward wholeness and radiant life. This is the high truth we affirm this morning with grateful hearts and minds, knowing God is with us always. And so it is. Amen. All right. Jack and Louisa are going to do another song for us. I don't have the title, but I'm sure you'll let us know what that is. Thank you, too.
Yes, thank you very much, Joanne. This song that we're going to do was the last tune that George Gershwin wrote before he passed. His brother wrote the words after George had passed. It's a great song for Father's Day or for any day concerning everlasting love.
All right.
And the song, which is a great one, our love is here to stay.
I like that.
I want to say one more thing. I was born less than 3 months after George Gershwin passed. And I think that some of his
Yeah.
got into me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that since I was very small. So.
It's very clear our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know may just be passing fancies, and in time may go. But oh my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay. But our love is here to stay. Here's Jack. Oh, my dear Jack Whitener, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay. But our love is here too. Our love is here too. Our love is here to stay. Yeah.
All right. Very quiet. Thank you. Christmas. Something like that. Such a treat to hear Jack and Louise. Father's Day. I was trying to think of good Father's Day jokes, and all I could come up with were little one-liner things, but these are exactly the kind of little puns my dad loved best, wordplay kind of puns. And the sillier the better, I think. He loved that kind of a joke, so he would love this one, for instance. What do you call a fake noodle? Impasta. 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 It's wordplay. I thought that was funny. My dad would have liked that. All right, what do you call cheese that isn't yours?
Nacho cheese.
Nacho cheese. Okay. All right, we're getting them now. One more. Did you hear about the cheese factory that exploded in France? There was nothing left but debris. Debris. That's right. We needed silly. Well, one of my dad's favorite jokes, it was just, it's not really funny at all, but he would say, how is a cat like the world? It's pretty fur from one end to the other.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a dad joke. That's a dad joke. All right, Father's Day, Juneteenth, summer solstice. I guess maybe my talk is a little bit more relevant to the third of those than anything. Thinking about power, the power that flows through us, the kind of life force, energy in us that comes from source and that's in us all, but flowing through us in different degrees. And I was remembering a trip to Hawaii we took some years back, and they talked about that power. In Polynesian culture, they call it mana, M-A-N-A. I got a kick out of it that Barbie asked me during the week. I had an email, I thought the talk was, how's your mama? Very different talk. But mana is like sort of encompasses all kinds of power, loving power that flows through us. In Hawaiian culture, it's understood as this life force that circulates within us and all around us. Anyone can have it. Places have it. Some places, some people have Mauna Loa, which means great power, Mauna Loa. And the right way to live, the holiest way in Polynesian culture, is understood to be a way of living very alert to that, alert to the mana all around us and the mana within us, and honoring that and being on the alert for it. We have a concept of this in Christianity. We call mana the Holy Spirit. It's the very same idea, this energy that comes from source that can be with us, that can fill us and surround us, and some people have that more than others. It's an energy available to us all to empower us, to enable us to deal with what's before us to deal with, to guide us through our lives. It's very akin to the concept of chi in Eastern religions, or prana in India. It's the very same idea of this life force, this spiritual power, this energy in us. So it's something we all have, and many things contribute to how much we have of it. Our circumstances, our conditioning maybe have some part to play in that. But also, we're never stuck with what we have, because it's limitless. This mana, this spiritual life force, it's limitless and always available to us. So the question becomes, how do we cultivate more of it then? How do we build it? And it seems to me, this time in our lives, and really all times in our lives, we need all the mana we can get. We need all the spiritual force, power, energy, healing energy, power flowing through us that we can get a hold of. And it seems like this is a good time to reflect on that, because I think mana is thick right now, all around us. We're coming into full summer in 2 days, the summer solstice, which has always been understood as a time of healing energy flowing strongly, time of prophecy, of wisdom. In the fullness of life all around us in summer, it really, we're very aware of mana. We were out looking at the fireflies last night. Any of you out looking at them? This is their time, and they're like diamonds sparkling in the woods, or over fields right now. Mana is thick all around us if we're looking around. So how do we cultivate mana? So I was harking back to some things we learned on that Hawaiian trip about ways to cultivate it. How do we increase our mana? We started hearing about mana as soon as we arrived. We went to the Big Island, Hawaii, with the Volcano National Park and so on. Have you been there? Yeah. And mana is thick there, and it's very creative energy going on there all the time. The islands were formed by that volcanic energy. So they really are kind of experts on this kind of power. And we kept hearing about it a lot. And so these are the lessons I guess we picked up, particularly from that trip. Mana, so lesson 1 about mana and how we cultivate it. It's very strong in some people and places, and we build ours to some extent by proximity to Mauna Loa. That's why we're drawn to certain places. That's why people go to the Hawaiian Islands or Sedona. Anyone ever been to Sedona, Arizona? Yeah, the vortexes, there's just this energy there somehow. There are a lot of places like that. There are certainly people who have more mana than others. There are individuals that we've all known, that we know now in our lives, maybe some among us, who have a high degree of this kind of mana energy about them. And we're drawn to such individuals, just kind of instinctively. In Hinduism, they have a term darshan I've always been fascinated with, but it's understood as a spiritual practice to draw near to a teacher or someone with more enlightenment, to be in proximity, that we witness that, we're inspired by it, that helps us cultivate our own mana. That because there are certain individuals and certain places that have Mauna Loa, greater power. Jesus of Nazareth, of course, the Christian tradition is just rich with stories of the Mauna Loa, the great power that flowed through him, that he was very aware of, went through him, that others wanted to touch his robe, to gather around him, the crowds. He had attained that Mauna Loa, that mana to such a high degree that it just flowed through him, it radiated out to others. And there have been many people in history like this. The Buddha had hordes of people following him around. Gandhi did. This drawing near, darshan, kind of through proximity, we're blessed by that. It helps us cultivate our own mana. So that's one of the ways. And it doesn't have to be somewhere exotic either. I think we all have places in our own lives. I was thinking of a friend of mine who talks about that morning walk she takes in her neighborhood. There's a way to get to a kind of a wooded ravine area, and she talks about that as her walk through her happy place. It's a sacred place for her. It has Mauna Loa. It has great energy that she feels that energizes her for the day. We have places like that in our lives. We have people like that in our lives. That helps us cultivate our own inner energy and power. A second teaching about this, though, and it seems a little contradictory, but isn't, but in Hawaii they talk about this a great deal, that you can't build your own inner force, your soul force, by acquiring it from others. You have to cultivate your own. From others you can be inspired, you can witness, you can learn through proximity, but you can't grasp it. You can't treat it like a commodity. You can't acquire it. You can only cultivate it. And there's a lot of stories in Hawaii about this. One of the guides who took us on some field trips, she worked at the retreat place, Kalani, where we stayed, and her name was Nikki. She grew up there on the islands, and she had stories to tell about people who would come to Hawaii, with a kind of an opportunistic eye for, what they could make use of, take back and sell, whatever, kind of things like that. Hawaiians have a word for people like that who see the islands that way, thinking about what they can take or use. They call them haole, H-A-O-L-E, haole, opportunistic types. And she told us about tourists who would come and they would take some of the special stones from the beach, or shells, or some of the black sand there. They have black sand beaches on Hawaii, and they'd take that home with them. I don't know what they were going to do with that, and then they would begin to have bad luck. the stories would go, and sometimes she would get things sent back to her in the mail. They'd mail this item back with a note saying, please return this to the beach I took it from. And Nikki explained, she said, people don't understand. You can't take things away like this. It goes against the mana. It goes against the mana. You can cultivate it, but you can't just acquire it. It's an inside job. It's an inside job. So we can be inspired by it through proximity to places with people with Mana Loa, but we can't acquire it on the outside. It can only be cultivated inward. So the lesson 3 is mana is cultivated through reverence and intention, and basically through practice. Through practice, you have an intention of living with a sense of sacred energy and of creating sacred space and treating the space around you and the people around you as if they have sacred energy in them. It's a matter of intention, of reverence, of devotion. And that's something we practice every day. And through that practice, we cultivate this Mana Loa, this power in us. And we heard a nice story about this on the grounds where we were staying at this retreat center, Kalani, where we stayed. We started hearing right after we arrived that there were some ruins of an ancient stone temple on the grounds. There's foundation left of it, and they called that a heiau. It had been an ancient stone temple, a heiau, that had been found on the land back in the 1970s when the new owners bought the place. Temples like that had been abundant on the islands at one time before westernization, but then most of them were lost. And so this was thought to be a place of great Mana Loa, great power. It was a place where people communed with the gods. It was a sacred place, and so a place of great mana. And so people brought offerings of fruit or vegetables or special talismans or stones or shells, brought it to that site. And in recent years, since the Kalani owners took it over, tourists had been doing that for decades, bringing, and we left a stone there, I think, on the foundation wall there that was there. And people would kind of be quieter there and walk kind of respectfully, like they were on holy ground. But then we had a guided tour by an expert from the area, and we went of the grounds, and we went by that site. And this anthropologist said that they had, in recent years, researchers had discovered that it really was not a heiau, one of those ancient stone temples. It had just been the home of a kahuna, of a priest. But the guide said, but it doesn't matter, it's all still mana. It's all still mana. Because all those years of reverence and donation and gifts and devotion, something had been cultivated over decades of that kind of practice. So it doesn't matter what it was in the past, it has become that over the years. It has become a highly sacred place, a place of great power. So the teaching about that story is that we build mana in the same way. We build it through practice, through devotion, through prayer, through silence, through creating sacred space in whatever way works for us, in whatever way comes to mind for us. And I think we do this instinctively, maybe because we know we need it. We know it builds something in us that we need. We need this kind of soul power. So I was thinking of some of the many, many examples of people I've known in my life who cultivated this kind of Mana Loa in themselves through creating sacred space in how they lived. I was thinking of an old friend, and Barbara, you'll remember Joanna Burns very well. She lived here in Delaware, just up the road a bit. Some of you might remember her from Unity of Columbus. For me, she was an icon of how to age with grace. It's like wear purple, live with vitality, live very open, mentally, spiritually. And she had a beautiful home in Delaware. And it was a place where she would host many people. Anybody coming into town who was doing some kind of alternative therapy work, like a psychic is visiting the area, or a toner, or whatever, some kind of healing therapy. She would put them up at her house. She would have sessions there. She had a beautiful garden with sculptures in it, with flowers, something she cultivated over years. Building that energy in her home, an energy of healing, an energy of loving kindness, an energy of openness, that it infused her home and garden with this mana loa. Perhaps you know someone with a place like that, with that kind of energy. Perhaps there's a place in your own home or garden that you have been cultivating that kind of sacred energy. It's real. I think sometimes we think it's not that big a deal. It is a big deal. We are really fed at a soul level. We are nourished by that kind of creation of sacred space. And it's a little thing we do. It can be just a little thing every day, like a walk you take, a place you sit, a certain corner in your home that's your sacred spot, your power spot. What are those old books Carlos Castaneda talked about? Find your power spot to plunk yourself down. We need the energy of that, and I think that's why we're guided to do this kind of devotion, and it can just be as simple as a morning routine. So we cultivate it through practice, through practicing sacred space, sacred time. We cultivate that, we build it in ourselves, and it increases year by year. Fourth one is, our mana is cultivated through generosity. That's a strong lesson in Hawaiian culture. I was interested to learn that that's how the Hawaiian luau, which they do for tourists, of course, everybody probably who visits Hawaii as a tourist, they have some kind of a luau. But it was meant to be traditionally a time of lavish giving of whatever you have to give, sharing of your gifts with those in attendance at your gathering, food and flowers and drumming and music. It was meant to be a lavish giving. The leis that they would make, flower maize, were meant to be lavish. They were meant to be of fine flowers, of orchids and plumeria, not plastic machine-made things that we sometimes have in our culture. It's all about generosity, generous giving and sharing, because it cultivates mana loa in us. It gives us a feeling of this soul energy, this great power within us as we give freely. I think this is taught very strongly in our Christian teachings. Jesus, was telling his disciples, freely you have received, freely give. Freely you have received. And we all receive freely. Just walk around outside in these wonderful summer days and we are soaking up the wonderful sunshine and the flowers and the scent of the flowers as you came in the door today, and the fireflies at night and the birds that are feeders. If we are soaking it up, we have received. It's a lavish universe. We need to freely give also. It needs to flow through us. As we do that, it cultivates the power in us. It builds that soul power in us. That feeling you get from being in the flow of life, from being in keeping with the lavishness of the universe, letting that lavish generosity flow through us in whatever ways we can. It doesn't always have to be monetarily kinds of things. It can be sharing of your energy and attention, your presence, your warmth, your kindness, letting that flow through us. We build our mana that way. We build our soul power, that energy within us. So how's your mana? How do you build your mana? You build it by inspiration from others, by proximity to others with mana, with proximity to places where there's good mana. And we were just talking about, we took a walk in a new park near here with the trees and everything. We need to expose ourselves to the mana around us, to be inspired, to be uplifted by it. But not to take anything, not to try to get it by shortcuts. We know we cultivate it within ourselves through reverence, through attention, through sacred practices, through slowing down, through silence, through listening and looking around and soaking it up. And I think now is a great time to really be soaking it up. These summer days are short and lavish and gorgeous. We need to really soak that up and then give it out just as freely. Soak it up and give it out. That's a good affirmation. I soak it up and I give it out. Let's say that together. I soak it up and I give it out. A free, full flow of this lavish, sacred energy flowing through us. It's inner cultivation, and I think that's what we're meant to do in these beautiful summer days. Build that mana in us to strengthen us for the challenges we're dealing with in our lives in our collective, our global lives. We need all the mana loa we can get, and it's richly available to us. So as we cultivate that, as we put ourselves in the flow of it, we become a blessing not only to ourselves, but to others all around us. So let's take that into a closing prayer, if we could. As we close our eyes, we affirm our high intention to live with an awareness of the sacred energy within and all around us. This mana, this chi, this powerful life force that is available to us all. This God-infused universe, every one of us is connected to that source and has access to that life-affirming energy, that renewing life, that steadying peace, that guiding wisdom that is God in us. So we are wide open to it. Within and all around us, we are soaking it up and we are letting it flow through us in fullness. Thank you, God, for your unfailing presence with us now and always. Amen. All right, we are going to move toward another song by Louise and Jack, and I don't know what that one is called either, but you will tell us what that is.
Thank you, Joy. Okay. Well, we never know exactly what we're going to do. But it's always the appropriate song for the appropriate message. This tune is entitled Garden in the Rain.
Nice.
Yeah. Now this one was written back in 1928. I wasn't here yet. Music by Carol Gibbons. I haven't really heard of these people, but I've sung their music, but I didn't really know it was them. And lyrics by James Drydenforth. James Drydenforth. Okay. Anyway, I know I love their music and I love the lyrics, and Garden in the Rain. Twas just a garden in the rain, close to a little leafy lane, a touch of color neath skies of gray. The raindrops kissed the flower beds, the blossoms raised their thirsty heads. A perfume, thank you, they seem to say. Surely here was charm beyond compare to view. Maybe it was just that I was there with you. 'Twas just a garden in the rain, but then the sun came out again and sent us merrily on our way. Here was charm beyond compare to view. Maybe it was just you.